February 12th, 2026, chapter, or the end of the chapter 15, this is 15.7, Appendix 1, and it's reflection in accord with the 4Noble truths and the reflection based on science of Buddha Dhamma, compiled by Somdet Pra Buddha Gosa Charya. English name is P.A. Payuto. In the top or the beginning of page 1532 to 1536, the first appendix for the end of the chapter 15 of Yo Niso Manasikara is reflection in accord with the 4 Noble Truths and reflection based on science. The Buddha's teachings describes many methods of Yo Niso Manasikara, wise reflection, which can be applied separately for different situations or combined and applied together for specific situations. In contemporary society, Yo Niso Manasikara, wise reflection, sound analysis, sound judgment, can be applied in different or for different situations, combined and applied together for one specific situation. Wise reflection is often referred to as scientific methods. One can also refer to a science method for analysis for solving problems, which corresponds here with reflection in accord with the 4 Noble Truths. Let us compare the two methods of reflection. The scientific method has 5 stages. First, we locate the problem. Second, we set up an hypothesis. The third, we do an experimentation and we gather up the data. The fourth, we analyze the data. And the fifth, we come to the conclusion. This kind of method includes the important function of investigating causes, which is intrinsic to the second stage. The hypothesis can be directly based on conjuncture or a specific cause, or a cause provided clear evidence for establishing a hypothesis. There are times, however, when the evidence does not clearly point to one distinct hypothesis, and therefore one must form many provisional hypotheses, emphasis on provisional. In the second method of reflection on the investigating on the 4 Noble Truths, the search for the cause is designated as a separate stage. Moreover, nevertheless, and in addition to, the 4 truths are classified into 2 separate groups as follows. The natural process, in line with nature. These stages are to be reached by knowledge, by reflecting on and knowing things according to the truth, which exists independently. The stage of recognizing dukkha, suffering, to know the nature of dukkha, suffering, or the nature of one's problems, to know when dukkha, suffering, manifests, and to know its extent or range, the location of the problems. The stage of investigating the cause, samudaya, is to discern the causes of dukkha, suffering, or one's problems. This stage is not distinguished in the scientific method. The stage of drawing an inference to cessation, nirodha, to examine the potentiality of sensation and the manner by which the problems may be truly solved. This is setting up the hypothesis. The methodology of human beings, this stage needs to be practiced and applied. Following the path manga, this stage can be subdivided into 3 sub-stages. Path 1, I-sana or Gave-sana. This includes Vimamsana, seeking verification, experimentation and gathering up the data. Path 2, Vimamsa or Pavichara, inspection, separation, selecting those factors that are correct and valid, analysis of the data. And the path 3, Anubodha, awakening, isolating those factors that are incorrect, apprehending or choose the true path, which leads to the solution to one's problems. This equals the conclusion. Here are the 4 stages in greater detail. First stage, recognition of dukkha, suffering. Human beings experience myriad kinds of dukkha, of suffering, affliction, and difficulty, both physical and mental, both internal and external. A basic form of dukkha, suffering, however, refers to those things that are oppressive because they thwart, oppose, and conflict with people's desires and cherished ideas. Human problems, or dukkha, suffering, comes in many different forms, according to various locations and time periods, and thus one must apply those solutions appropriate and specific to those conditions. The basic forms of dukkha, suffering, refers to above. However, it is inherently connected to human life and to the human nature, regardless of whether one lives alone or with others. This dukkha, suffering, follows people constantly. It manifests and issues effective irrespectively of whether people have solved those problems owing to specific times and places. Addressing this basic form of dukkha is a regular and consistent responsibility for people. The degree by which one rectifies the basic dukkha will have an effect on every other kind of dukkha or difficulty. Both their level of intensity and one's ability to deal with them. Addressing this basic kind of dukkha, this basic kind of suffering, is thus the most fundamental and supreme benefit for human life. Other dukkha, suffering, and difficulties must be dealt with at other stages and suit the circumstances or the situation. The second stage is the investigation of causality, of the cause. In order to envision the solution to the problems, this stage of investigation is directly linked to the third stage of inferring cessation, nirodha. The example here is the way in which one draws an inference to cessation depends on how accurately one apprehends the causes to one's problems. Methods A, B, and C, we're going to go to stage number 3 below, but here one grasps the cause of suffering incorrectly, say by believing that one has experienced inadequate amounts of pleasure. Alternatively, one neglects the investigative causes altogether. Method D, here, however, one understands that causes of dukkha, suffering, is tanha, craving, the desire, the wanting, the longing for it, or else one gains an even deeper insight into dependent origination, pati sampata, tracing the cause back to avijja, ignorance. The third stage is drawing an inference to nirodha, cessation. One reckons that suffering ends by one of the following processes. A, by seeking sensual pleasure and indulging oneself to the maximum. B, by developing concentration of attainment, jhana samapatti, according to the way by the yogis, yogi vitti. C, by developing extreme austerities through self-mortification or practicing asceticism. D, by serving the cycles of dependent origination, dispelling ignorance, cutting off craving, being mindful, and conducting one's life with wisdom. The fourth stage is following the path, magga. Path 1, isana, searching, experimentation. Gautama Buddha practiced and experimented with all four of the above mentions in seeking the end of dukkha. He also observed how people and the society live and exist when following each of the four methods. Path 2, vimamsa, inspection or the analysis. To analyze is one's observation and experimentation. Gautama Buddha recognized, even before his great renunciation, that seeking sensual pleasures does not give true meaning to life or lead to what is essential. Moreover, it leads to affliction. He saw that yogic practices lead only to far as various concentration of attainments, that severe austerities create torment and affliction in vain. The path of wisdom, panya, in telling the end of avijja and tanha, ignorance and craving. However, it is able to eradicate the root of dukkha and leads to true deliverance. Path 3, anubbodha, awakening, understanding. One realizes the way of sensuality and the way of severe asceticism are extreme, while the way of yogis result in getting stuck in the middle. By this latter way, one does not yet reach the path magga. This correct and true course is the middle way. The Noble Eightfold Path, the way of wisdom, which begins with samatiti, right view. In Thailand, Dr. Saro Satcho Busari has already written about the comparison between scientific methods and the methods in accord with the Four Noble Truths. The book is called A Philosophy of Education for Thailand, The Confidence of Buddhism and Democracy. This is a praiseworthy work. Because in the meantime, there has been further examination and contemplation on the subject. I have introduced some other different ideas. Somdet Phra Bhuta Gosachaya mentioned in the earlier chapter how the natural law of the three characteristics, ti lakhana, anakkata, dukkhata, and anattata, dukkhata, and anikkhata. Ti lakhana, the three characteristics. And the law of dependent origination, patisamupata, are in the fact the same law, but described from different angles. Impermanence and inconsistency produce pressure and conflict, and thus it's natural for there to be fluctuation. Anikam dukkham viparanam dukkham. Yet this process occurs according to causes and conditions. Reflecting in this way expands the study of yoniso manasikara, wise reflection, to include the methods of dialectics, vipassa vitti. It would be useful, however, to try to interpret the methods of dialectics by Applying the mode of detailed analysis, Vibaja VT. This matter can be reviewed and considered by scholars when there is an opportunity. That's the end of the first appendix. In the end of the page 1536, Buddha Dhamma.